Good morning again. Okay, so I was thinking about our lesson today, and I was thinking about how stuff happens. Stuff happens. Things come to us, and stuff happens. And as we move on the spiritual path, what can we do to mitigate our response to that? To come up with a creative and balanced response. And as I was researching, I found a lovely little parable that I would like to read to you. A young woman went to her grandmother and told her about her life and how things were so hard for her. She didn't know how she was going to make it, and she wanted to just give up. She was tired of fighting and struggling. It seemed that one problem was solved, another one would pop up. Her grandmother took her to the kitchen. She filled 3 pots with water and placed each on the fire. And soon the pots came to a boil. In the first pot, she placed carrots. In the second, she placed eggs. And the last, she placed coffee beans. She let them sit and boil without saying a word. In about 20 minutes, she turned off the burners. She fished out the carrots and placed them in a bowl, pulled the eggs out, put them in the bowl. She ladled the coffee out and put it in a bowl. Turning to her granddaughter, she said, "Now tell me, what do you see?" "Carrots, eggs, and coffee," came the reply. Her grandmother brought her closer and asked her to feel the carrots. She then asked her to feel the eggs. The carrots were soft. The egg, after pulling off the shell, had become hard inside, a hard-boiled egg. And finally, the grandmother asked her to sip the coffee. The granddaughter smiled as she tasted its rich aroma. "What does it mean, grandmother?" Her grandmother explained that each of these objects had faced the same adversity, boiling water. Each reacted differently. The carrot went in strong, hard, and unrelenting. However, after being subjected to boiling water, it had softened and become weak. The egg had been fragile. Its thin outer shell had protected its liquid interior. But after sitting through the boiling water, its inside had become hardened. The ground coffee was unique. After they were in the boiling water, they changed the water. "Which are you?" she asked her granddaughter. Sometimes we do feel like we're on a roller coaster, right? Up and down and up and down and up and down. We're going along, we're chugging along just fine, and then wham, something happens, something upsets us, something makes us mad. We get the flu. A dear friend gets a divorce. We get furloughed at work. Stuff happens. Stuff happens. This is our first slide. Stuff. I saw that and I was like, okay. So this, I imagined, this is our roller coaster of life, right? Up and down, up and down, up and down. And I was looking around for something that I thought illustrated how we feel, and there we are, right? Right? Doesn't that kind of sum it all up? Like, oh, not again. Yeah, I know, it's precious, isn't it? It's just precious. Thank you, Jim. Okay. So sometimes we act like the carrot, and we think we have it all figured out, but then we're faced with a challenge. And I wanted to give you an example from my own life. When I was in graduate school, I took a class called Spiritual Direction. And the purpose of that class is to learn to help people who are feeling spiritually disconnected in their life. And they're looking for someone to help them reconnect with spirit, to enrich their spiritual practice, things like that. And so in the course of this class, we were given scenarios on paper, like someone comes to you and they have X, Y, or Z problem. And your job is to write a paper about how would you handle it? What would you do? So I'm like, I got this. I got this. I've been in Unity for 20 years. I got this. I got all the answers. I'm feeling pretty smug, right? And I write my paper, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to say this, I'm going to suggest that you do this. And I turn in my paper, fully expecting a great grade. You know what's coming. You know what's coming. I get the paper back. It is filled with red ink. Filled. And I got a C. And I think I was lucky to get a C. Based on the comments that I got. I mean, like some of the comments were like, literally like, what? Are you kidding? Like, I'm not kidding. The professor was writing that on my paper. And I was, of course, uh-oh. Right? Stuff happens, right? Right? I'm sorry, Carrie. Hope make it better. How do I put it back? All right, I'll talk like this. Here's my microphone. Exactly, right? Stuff happens. Stuff happens. Oh, here, Carrie's going to rescue me. See, I talk with my hand. I was going to use a microphone like this, but I can't because I do that. Yay. Thank you. I know. See, exactly. It's going to be one of my points later is going to be that exact thing. Exactly. So I'm sitting with it all week long. And I'm stewing about it, because I really don't get it. I really don't get it. I thought I did great. Isn't that a good, come on, that's a brilliant response right there. Come on, And I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I took it to my prayer time, and then I'm driving down the road. A lot of good things happen when you're driving down the road, right? Right? And I'm driving down the road, and boing, the light comes on, and I get it. And it's very clear to me why my response was so bad. It was very clear. And I went to my professor the next week, and I said, I get it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I get it. And it was really a lesson in humility. It was a lesson in you don't have all the answers all the time. Don't get so smug, but it was a really important lesson to me that it's okay. When you think you got it all, just relax for a minute and take a step back and be willing to kind of be open. Be open to, well, maybe I don't have all the answers right in this second, and maybe that's okay. And so sometimes we can be like the egg. We're kind of soft on the outside at one point, and then something happens and we become hard. We can get bitter. We can get cynical, right? We get an idea, and we share it with a friend, and the friend goes, that's not going to work. Don't even bother. And we're kind of like, oh. Right? That's what my lesson's about. Thank you, microphone, for being such a good illustration of my lesson today. We can get prickly. We can allow ourselves to get kind of prickly. Raise your hand if you've never been prickly in your life. Okay, that was a trick one, right? So we sometimes in the face of adversity, we become like that egg, and we get a little hard inside, and we can get a little disillusioned. And we can allow ourselves to kind of operate from that point of view sometimes, right? And so the other piece of that is that we can also get really overdramatic. Something happens, some little thing might happen, some little minor thing might happen, but then, oh God, if this happens, oh, then this might happen. And then if that happens, then that might happen. And have you ever gotten caught in one of those little downward spirals of fantasies, like you bounce a check and all of a sudden you're facing bankruptcy, right? Or you get a little cold and the next thing you know you're in the hospital with pneumonia. Our mind can tend to sort of spiral into that that negative fantasy type stuff, right? We start to get into self-pity, we get into drama, right? Our mind sometimes loves to get into the drama of things. So we become a little bit like that egg. So the spiritual path challenges us to be like the coffee bean. We get to change. We get to color our surroundings. Just like the meditation today. We have the chance to influence our surroundings for the better. Do we not? So the spiritual, whenever we're having a challenge, we can ask ourselves, what is Spirit trying to teach us here? What is Spirit trying to teach me? And so here are the reminders. Here's what we do. We assume that everything that comes our way has the potential to advance our spiritual growth in some way. We don't know what it might be, but we operate on an assumption that somehow this is going to advance my spiritual growth. I'm going to get an important spiritual lesson from this challenge. In my opinion, there's no such thing as failure on a spiritual path. Everything is fodder for our growth. And even if we say, okay, next time I'm gonna do it. Next time I'm gonna reframe the challenge. I'm not gonna be so anxious. But then we fall in the trap again. Even that is part of our growth. Like, oh, there I went again. Look at that. Remember a while back I gave you the little autobiography in 5 lessons where we fall in the hole and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a little bit like that. Okay, so I fell in the hole again. What do I learn from that? Everything can be viewed as fodder for our spiritual growth. Everything. We just have to be willing to be open and receptive to what's the lesson here? What's the lesson here? Notice when you're thrown off center. Pay attention. Pay attention. Be awake. What's throwing me off center? Did a friend of mine say something to me and I took it personally, even though it was an innocuous comment? What makes us angry? What makes us sad? What irritates us? We know, all those little irritations during there. What is it that's irritating us? Just pay attention. Oh, I'm feeling irritated right now. What might that be? What might that be teaching me? That I'm irritated, that I'm annoyed. Oh, anyway, anything that comes up that's unloving, just pay attention to it. That's all. Oh, here's some information. My body, my psyche is giving me some information that I can use for my spiritual growth. Okay? What am I being called to do or be in this moment? What is Spirit asking of me? Use our spiritual tools. We got a lot of them, right? We pray. We breathe. Call a friend and ask for help, right? That's the best thing you can do. Call somebody. This happened today, and I need help thinking about it. Go out in nature. Nature gives us the big picture. A lot of times we think our own little things are so important, and then we go out in nature and we see this 500-year-old oak tree, and we're like, all of a sudden, our little annoyance doesn't seem so important anymore, right? So use nature to give you a sense of perspective. Listen to music. Find some nice music. Meditate. All of us are good meditators in this area. Exercise. Get those endorphins going. Write. I know for me, writing is a really helpful spiritual tool. When something has knocked me off center, I'll go to my journal and I'll just do a mind dump. And that always brings me back to the center. Okay? I highly recommend that. What are some things that you do that I haven't mentioned? Anybody have something that they do to bring themselves back to center that I haven't mentioned, Dolores? Cook. Great. Excellent. Anybody else have something they do that clean the toilet? That's really symbolic, cleaning the toilet. Yeah. Play with your cats. Yeah, pets bring you back to center. Pets are like, they don't get annoyed. Take a nap. Reboot. Absolutely. That's just like a reboot. Perfect. Anybody else? Walk the dog. Excellent. Yes. Yes. Our animals help us really put things back in perspective, don't they? We can't get annoyed when we're petting the dog, right? Good. Very good. Okay. Well, let's move on. The most important one, love yourself. Love yourself. Give yourself a hug right now. I'm not kidding. Thank you. Love yourself. Okay, close your eyes. You are the beloved. Okay, hug yourself again while you're closing your eyes. You are the beloved. Nothing that you can do or say will make Spirit not love you. Nothing. Nothing at all. When you know you are loved, things won't get to you so much. And if they do, they'll bring you back to center pretty quickly. While you have your eyes closed, I want you to imagine a clock face with the hands straight up at noon. That's your center. You're centered. Hands are at noon. I'm centered. I'm at peace. Now, something bugs you. Oh, you think of a little irritation. And the hands go over to like 11:50. You're kind of off. You're kind of annoyed. Now, go to your peaceful place. Take a deep breath. Now bring the hands back to center. Bring the hands back to center. You are the beloved. You are the beloved. All is well. All is well. Okay, you can open your eyes now. Just a little something that you can use in your mind to help you bring yourself back. And the hands might be at 11:30. It might be so bad, but you can, get yourself back little by little. Get yourself back to quarter of, All right, I'm a quarter. I'm okay. And then work your way back up to noon, right? Okay? Just a little visual. Now, here's some advice from the Buddha. There's a little story, a little parable from the Buddha. Once Buddha was walking from one town to another with a few followers. These were his initial days, and they were traveling. They happened to pass a lake. They stopped there, and the Buddha said to one of his disciples, "I'm thirsty. Please give me some water from the lake." The disciple walked to the lake, and at that moment, a carriage had just crossed, and the lake water was very, very muddy, so he couldn't get the water. So he came back to the Buddha and said, "I'm sorry, but the lake water is too muddy. I can't get you any water right now." He thought to himself, what am I going to do? So he waited a while. He thought, well, maybe I'll just wait a while. So about an hour went by, and the Buddha said, "Hey, I would really like that water now." So the disciple went back to the lake. But it was still too muddy. It was still too muddy. He returned and told the Buddha. So another couple hours went by. And again the Buddha said, "Please, I really would like some water." So I went down to the water. And by this time the mud had settled. And the water above it looked as if it was clear and clean. So he collected some of the water and he brought it back to the Buddha. And Buddha looked at the water and he looked at the disciple and he said, "See what you did to make the water clean? You let it be. And the mud settled down on its own and you got clear water. Your mind is also like that. When it is disturbed, just let it be. Give it a little time. It'll settle down on its own. You don't have to put any effort to calm it down. It'll happen. It is effortless. So sometimes we can just let things be. And instead of being tossed by the waves, we learn to surf. So imagine before we had our up and down roller coaster, right? And use this as a kind of a visual. Like I'm riding the waves now. I'm surfing, I'm riding the waves. It's all good. It's all good. I got this, right? I got this. Everybody say that with me. I got this. So I'm going to close with the story of this wonderful little dog. Her name is Ricochet. And she was trying to be trained as a therapy dog. And in the course of her training, it became clear that she was not fit to be a regular therapy dog. She was much too active and wild. Okay, she's a Labrador, she's a retriever, so water was her thing. So luckily, her trainer made a connection and saw potential in her with her water. And she knew that there are dogs that like to surf. So they trained Ricochet to surf. And she became a surfing therapy dog. There's one of the stories is about an autistic child, a young autistic child, who was terrified of the water, wouldn't speak, and they introduced him to Ricochet. And Ricochet worked with him, and he became a surfer. This little autistic child became a surfer. And so Ricochet was able to take her up and down, okay? And they were able to help her take her adversity and use it as a gift, okay? Her wildness was actually a gift. And so she learned to surf. She learned to take her adversity and just surf, okay? So our affirmation is, together, let's affirm, I greet every challenge with the anticipation of a wise insight. Surf's up. And so it is, and so it is. Thank you.